also myself that I would bring is one an unfailing commitment to the mandate of Iebc, and expect you have made reference to pressures, and expect that. And this may not be too new, because we went, especially in the initial stages, with the changes that the 2010 Constitution, which obviously is radical and transformative relative to the previous Constitution. There was also plenty of political pressure from everywhere, at times from Parliament, at times from the executive. I feel that we were able to stay on the straight and narrow. So, speaking for myself, I believe that is an important skill to be able to navigate those pressures while not compromising on what it is that the mandate is. I think I also feel I would bring into the commission people skills, particularly with the commission itself, so that because I visualize on day one you have a commission of 7 people. They may or may not even have ever seen each other. They are from different backgrounds, possibly with different orientations, different personalities. So I would see the role of the chair, one of the most important roles of the chair, which I believe my experience with CIC stands me in good stead, is how do you manage this kind of scenario? People with different orientation, people with different personalities. I feel that mainly because if you ask me about my personality, people have told me this and I believe it to be true. One of the gifts God gave me is to listen. And I think it's very important when you're dealing in that kind of scenario to listen. And that way you are able to manage people a little better. So I would say the people skills, I would say the courage to do that which is right, irrespective. And I have thought about these things. A close friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, a professional colleague, when I told him I am applying for this job, he told me, my brother, are you sure you want to do that? I asked, many people have asked me that question. I said, yes. He told me why. I asked him why. He told me, you should be ready to either lose your life or your integrity. That's exactly the words that he used. I told him, no, I do not intend to lose my life in serving the people of Kenya as chair or commissioner of Iebc, and I have no intention at any point of compromising on integrity. And I think it's defeatist. So to answer your question, I believe I have the courage that I have no illusions about how difficult this job is. But then at the same time, I have no hesitation in believing that I can do it.
That's okay, Justice. I want you to confirm to this panel.
Yes.
If it is true what Dr. Elizabeth Muli says about you.
Yes.
She's one of your referees.
Yes.
That you possess exceptional stakeholder management and conflict resolution skills. Because I did not hear you say that you possess those skills. But she says that in her recommendation letter. Is it true?
It is true. I guess maybe I did not say everything that I would, or maybe I did not put it the way that Dr. Muli has put it in that reference, because we dealt, as I said earlier, we dealt with diverse stakeholders and people who had different interests, and one of the common denominators was that most were resistant to change. But we managed. I mean, when we were dealing with some institutions that were fairly rigid traditionally, but we felt that the Constitution required certain changes in the law that manages those institutions. We had long negotiations, and these are not people you can just talk down to. You have to convince them, persuade them, and by and large, we succeeded. But let me say this. Dr. Muli is overly kind to me, because the truth of the matter is we were able to do that because we worked together as a team. I wouldn't say that happened because, and only because, Charles Nyachae had those skills. It happened because we had a team which could work together, which could share how to manage, whether it is conflict or different ideas from stakeholders that we are dealing with. We were able to do that together as a team.
I think that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Thank you. I will invite Karo Kituku to engage you with some questions.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Nyachae, you'll allow me to ask like 3 questions or 2 questions. The Constitution at Article 86 contemplates the use of a voting method that is accurate, verifiable, simple, transparent, and accountable. In the 2013 elections, 2017 and 2022, the Iebc deployed technology. In your view, does the technology that the Iebc deployed meet this constitutional threshold or requirements? Was it verifiable? And you can use examples to explain your answer.
Okay, I would say that this has happened incrementally. And the real 2013 years, but I think the real technology was 2017. My understanding of why the first election in 2017 was annulled was on the question of verifiability, because the Supreme Court took the view that the technology that was used, and in particular the uploading of results from the polling station to the National Tallying Center, and now I'm talking about the presidential election, because that's really where the problems that Iebc has been having about elections. That has been the main, the presidential election, and the Supreme Court was quite clear that we cannot verify this which the presiding officer basically was sending a text, their own text. And that's why the Supreme Court required the uploading and the actual transmitting of what is known as Form 34A. That's basically, apart from a few other, maybe, that's, in my understanding, what actually killed that first election. And that being the case, I would say that, and I think the Supreme Court also took the view that 2022 was a significant improvement, and on the what remains to be done, in my view, has more to do not so much with the fact that the election may not be verifiable, but it has more to do with the ordinary Kenyan remaining persuaded that it is verifiable. If you read my application, my letter of application, I used the phrase that where IEBC wants and needs to be is where IEBC, like Caesar's wife, must be above suspicion. Because as long as what is being done leaves any question marks in the electorate, in the people of Kenya, then IEBC has fallen short. I think IEBC, and to this extent, I agree with the Supreme Court. They did, relative to the previous two elections, I think they did a relatively good job. There are, of course, things that the Supreme Court pointed out which could be done better. But all said and done, the elephant in the room is that question of what is it that needs to be done, especially with the use of technology, so that the Kenyan voter, the electorate, the Wanjiko, the Mora, the Amina, actually is persuaded that yes, even if we lost this, we are not quarreling with the electoral management body. The reasons lie elsewhere.
Okay. So this following up on what you're saying, that the technology that the IBC has deployed over the various electoral cycles has been progressive. So apart from the KIMS kit, which is the technology that IBC basically deploys, what other areas can the technology be deployed to enhance the elections management in Kenya?
Again, you'll allow me to go. Sorry, you'll allow me to go back to the fundamental question, what I've called the elephant in the room, so that we are looking at the trust deficit that exists between the people of Kenya and the whole system, including IEBC. How do we narrow and possibly even do away with that? So my answer to that question is even around the KIMS kit. If I was or tomorrow I find myself in the boardroom of IEBC with commissioners, I would be saying, what is it that the technology we have, what is it that can additionally be done so that the people of Kenya actually feel that they have no reservations? IBC, I believe there's an ongoing discussion between IBC and, of course, like the National Treasury and those who provide money about whether or not the technology, especially the KIMS kits, whether they're obsolete. IBC takes a position, I believe, that they are now obsolete. So that's an issue that needs to be resolved. I am aware that one of the things because currently what the KIMS kit does, as I'm sure you members of the panel know, is the starting with the the registration of voters, then the registration of candidates, then the identification at the polling station of the voter, and finally, which is the most problematic, the transmission, especially of the presidential result from there. So, and in the process of answering the question, I would want to ask, if I'm in the commission and just sat there, I would want to find out from the technology people, for example, how can technology carry the voter with IEBC from the time they vote up to the time results are announced? For example, the issue of technology keeping the voters, if I vote, for example, if I normally vote at a polling station called Kisi Primary School. When I vote there and leave the station, if at the close of the voting, I got a message that tells me in your polling station, X number of people voted. This is when they have done the counting. These are the results. The ones that are being announced, pinned to the door and transmitted and then physically taken. If that was done, I venture, and technology helped the voter to get that. I venture to suggest that a Kenyan who was so minded could actually do the arithmetic themselves. So by the time IEBC is announcing the result, they are able to, if they are so minded, to do that arithmetic, whether through their political parties or not. So I think what I would be asking, not being a technology person myself, my question will still remain what I would be asking the technology people. What is it additional that we can do the voter to feel that there's nothing going on wrong, there's nothing they've missed? Yeah.
My last question. So the law and there are instances that the technology does fail.
Yes.
It's technology, it can fail. So the law envisages that IBC should contemplate having a complementary system. Two questions. What is this complementary system? And the second question, how would you ensure that that complementary system remains credible, transparent, verifiable, accurate, and accountable?
Okay, the first question.
Put on your mic, Justice.
I'm sorry, Chair. The first question, what is this alternative? This was the subject of litigation. Of course, having another technologically based complementary system may not be such a bright idea because they could both fail. So the complementary system that IEBC is using really now is the physical getting the information. This is at the polling station, getting the information physically from the register. But that it's complementary, but, and this now is to answer your second question, it may not be ideal, because you go back to the reason that we went to technology in the first place. So, as at now, me, who is not a technology person, I have not yet engaged with an understanding of what a complementary system that does not rely on the register would do.
So maybe to help you, this complementary system can be manual in the sense that the voter identification is manual. It's outside the technology. There is a physical counting, the physical tallying of the Form 34, that for A, that for B, that for C, and the handwritten transmission or the physical transmission of the forms to the National Tallying Center. This is in regard maybe to the presidential.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is maybe what could be manually. So we are asking, given now those steps that are being taken manually without the help of technology, if you become successful and you're the chairperson of the IBC, how would you ensure that those processes meet the constitutional threshold that is established in Article 86 in regard to the system being verifiable, accurate, accountable, transparent?
Yes. Let me say this. I think it would be, in the absence of technology, it becomes more difficult to ensure that it is verifiable. So I think one then would be looking at that. How do you safeguard, for example, the journey, the physical journey that that Form 34A takes to become 34B and then eventually get to the National Tallying Center. And I also think that participants, not to run away from the responsibility of IEBC to deliver an election that is verifiable, credible, and transparent. The players in the political parties, the candidates, I think need to play a bigger role in terms of protecting that process, and that requires, I think, engagement between IEBC and the stakeholders in coming up with an alternative system, which, as I hear you, would be entirely devoid of technology, which of course means that we are going back to where we started.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We are almost halfway through, so be concise in your responses. I want to invite Dr. Koki to ask some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Justice Nyachae, you mentioned that you have been in the democratization movement in Kenya, and indeed it is true, we have worked together. My question is, one of the issues that has really concerned democracy, has hampered democracy in Kenya, is and has contributed to divisive politics, is a system of first past the post, or what we have in Kenya, that leads to results that the winning candidate takes all, where the winner takes all. And one of the concerns that, of course, there are many ideas that have been advanced on how to improve the democracy and the electoral landscape by introducing different types of electoral systems. For example, mixed member proportional representation, etc., which addresses some of these divisive elections. Why do you think that has not succeeded in Kenya, and you have been involved in, in this process for that long? That's the first question.
My own view is that I think there are probably several reasons which pertain to our type of politics, which sadly is not always issue-based, and that's why even political parties to actually achieve issue-based political parties has been a challenge, and that's why, for example, proportional representation may not work, because you have a mindset that we want our own representative in this particular locality or in this particular community who we see as our representative. It's not about issues. That, I think, is a reality. But let me say this. Those who, in the democratization process, as you will recall, Dr. Muli, we tended to deal with much more basic things, and we really didn't get, at that time, to the stage where we are looking at, for example, alternative kinds of elections. I always ask, whenever I hear that argument, I always ask myself, why does first past the post work in very many other systems, but it's a challenge? It's a challenge in Kenya. The people of Kenya, I think, promulgated a constitution as they saw fit, how they wanted to be governed, and perhaps and our politics tend to revolve around individuals. Perhaps a solution would be to have a system where, yes, first past the post, for example, if you're talking about a presidential election, but then you have individuals who have huge followings, and when they lose an election, whichever way they lose an election, their followers just feel, then we are done for. If our person did not get it, then we are done for. So to me, not being pessimistic, but I wouldn't start with trying to change the system so that we have, say, proportional representation, which I personally favor. I would begin it from the pragmatic perspective of, is there a way that we can ensure that participants in an election at the end of that process are not feeling excluded from the body politic?
Thank you. Justice Nyachae, perhaps you can share with the panel some ideas on how we can address this issue in Kenya, this perennial problem of divisive politics, and when at the end of election results where they are not being accepted, and after elections we have those members, you're saying the followers of the losing candidate, the first runners-up, has a lot of votes that have just gone to waste.
Yes.
How do we address that so that we can make Kenyans appreciate and accept the results of the elections?
I think the first thing I would say, Dr. Muli, is that what we were discussing a minute ago, where we want to get to a situation where the people of Kenya have faith in the system and to the extent that they are more likely to accept the result. I don't want to speak too much. The chair warned me, but let me just give a quick example. I'm not a great football fan, Chair, but in 2014, by God's grace, I got an opportunity to go and watch the World Cup final in Rio, in Brazil. Thousands of people in that stadium, and everybody with very strong views in terms of who they are supporting. At the end of the match, you just had two reactions. Those who won were jubilant. Those who lost left there feeling dejected. But what you didn't have is a scenario of those who lost saying, no, there was something not right here. Of course, there are things like, I forget what they call it, where nowadays there's technology assists to follow some of those things. But the important thing is, how do you, in answer to Dr. Muli's question, how do we get to a situation, and that's the first part, a situation where people have faith in that system. So if they lose, they're just dejected, but they don't cry foul. The second team, the second side of it, I think if we accept as a people that we have this problem that is perennial, where we have difficulties in accepting the results and so on, because of what the consequences are. Because the consequences is that a leader and his or her people feel, oh, if once we are lost, then we are done. We have nothing out of it. Is perhaps to relook at the structure of government so that in the body politic, those who have not won at all levels to be able to form government feel that they're still participating in the body politics. Those are the two suggestions that I would make.
Thank you very much, Justice Nyachae. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I presume that in Brazil there was confidence in the referee.
Chair, there must have been, because I didn't see anybody shouting referee Akwende or things like those. I just saw people jubilating in that particular match. Germany won. I saw people, those supporting Germany jubilating. The other side, Argentina lost, the crying. But it's just the way you accept that we lost. But nobody challenged the system of how the result was arrived at. That's my point, Chair.
Okay, then we will ask you further questions, since you will be the referee if you get this job.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Justice Nyachae. You are the chair of CIC, which I'm looking at the Constitution here. You are to monitor, facilitate, and oversee the development of legislation and administration procedures required to implement this Constitution. Now, I believe you were part of the Chapter 15, the operationalization of the Chapter 15 commissions, for which CIC was one of them, and particularly Iebc is one of the Chapter 15 commissions. However, in the recent past, in 2014, there was the Senate actually raised concern with regard to conflicts between the Commission or within the Commission. And I think this one was specifically to National Gender and Equality Commission. Equally, in 2015, there was an issue at Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is also a Chapter 15 commission. And even it went to court. There were investigations that were done. At some point, they were nullified on the basis that there were no commissioners at EACC. We've seen what has been happening at IEBC. 2017, we saw how the former chair, the CEO, how some commissioners left, resigned. And coming home to the IEBC Act, I was just looking at it, and we've had 10 amendments up to last year. The one that created this election panel was actually the 10th amendment of the IEBC Act. So looking at the governance framework of these constitutional commissions and the conflicts that we've seen running across, is there a problem with regard to the governance framework of our constitutional commissions? And is it a constitutional issue? Is it a legal issue? Or it's more of a governance issue? Thank you.
My answer to that would be it's none of the above. The biggest problem is the dynamics of personalities and what is perceived as power play. The one you didn't mention was between the National Land Commission and the Ministry of Lands. I honestly, obviously, like I said earlier on, hindsight is always 2020. There must have been a few things here that when you look back, you say, this we could improve on and this we could improve on. But the basic framework for each of those constitutional commissions, I would still stand by the laws that were put in place. The problem, if we are to be honest with ourselves, is personalities, the dynamics of power play, resistance to change. Classic example would be the conflicts that were there between the National Police Service Commission and the National Police Service itself, the Inspector General and his team. I still don't think the problem was either with the Constitution or with either with the Constitution or the laws made to implement the Constitution. I think it has more to do with a situation where one side or other is resisting change. You know, we must not forget at any point that the 2010 Constitution was and remains a radical document, a transformative document, relative to where we were before. So when you tell a senior police officer, take the IG, and I mean, it's just an example, I'm not accusing the IG of anything, that you were able to do this previously, but now under the constitutional dispensation that we now have, this can only be done this way, or this can be done by another body like the commission. Even when we were writing the KDF Act, for example, it took a lot of energy, particularly by Dr. Muli, Elizabeth Muli, who was in charge of that particular thematic group. It took a lot of energy, negotiation, for the military to understand a concept called civilian oversight, which is in the Constitution. They're not used to it. To their credit, eventually they were able to internalize it. To me, the problem we have been having with the constitutional commissions is not about the Constitution, is not about the laws to implement the Constitution. It's about the power play and resistance to change.
Further to that, the Iebc Act, which if you are successful, you will be responsible for its implementation, was actually amended in 2016. And it is the only one under Chapter 15 commissions that has separated the functions of the commissioners and the Secretariat. Unlike all the other Chapter 15, this one under Section 11A has went ahead to separate it. So given your experience and the fact that you've said it's not about the law, it's not about the Constitution, it's about power play, so how will you, if appointed, handle these challenges that have been default to IEBC for the last 10 or so years?
Sorry, which particular one? Which particular challenge?
You see, Section 11,
yes.
2A.
Sets out the...
It is the only
yes.
of all the Chapter 15
yes.
where it has clearly separated the roles
yes.
of the Commission and
yes.
of the Secretariat.
Yes.
Unlike any other Chapter 15.
Yes.
So, given the fact that you say this is about power play, it's
yes.
not an issue of law.
Yeah.
So, assuming you, and if you get this position,
yes.
as the chair of IEBC, how will you ensure that these conflicts, perennial conflicts that have been there at IEBC, which are more of power play, not the law, how will you address them as once appointed?
Okay. I think there are two different levels of conflict. The one that we were talking about in the earlier question is about the Commission as an entity and maybe another entity like part of the executive which was dealing with particular issues beforehand. Now you're asking me about within the Commission. And if you're asking me about IEBC, if I was privileged to serve as chair of IEBC, I would consider myself lucky, more lucky than the other constitutional commission heads, for the simple reason that I accept that amendment 11A is a very helpful and useful amendment, because you don't then have to have any tug of war about who does what. The bigger problem has been, in my view, with the other external entities. But let me come to IEBC. You know what? Honestly, I think the solution to IEBC, 11A is very good. It helps. But 11A will not solve the problem if the mindset of the respective players, like the commissioners and the secretariat, you know, are mentally operating from different perspectives. That amendment is 2016. Yeah. Now, if we just look at the commission, it didn't help in 2022 at Bombers. It was there. You still had this rupture which nobody understands. Yeah. But which, for me, I attribute to more, not about the structure. I attributed more to a problem of personalities and a problem of interests, and again, power play. So the law there, which is very good, Section 11A of the Act is very good. It sets out all this, yeah? But we still have a challenge. Even when I read the Supreme Court judgment for 22, which endeavored to advise the issue of the relationship between the chairperson and the commissioners relative to the chairperson constitutionally being the returning officer for the presidential election. I am persuaded that even with that guidance from the Supreme Court, if the mindset of the people within that commission is wrong or is negative, you will still have it. So maybe I'm going further than the question you asked me, but if I was to find favor in the position that I have applied for, and I was find myself as chair of the commission, I would consider one of my most urgent and major tasks is how to make 7 people every person has come from wherever they have come from, how to turn that into a team which focuses on what the mandate is and how each of them individually can deliver for a collective discharge of the mandate. And for me, as an individual, I consider that my experience at CIC would stand me in good stead.
Thank you very much. I'll ask Misati Evans to take up some questions.
Thanks so much. Let me call you Charles. That's what I'm used to calling you. Now, from what you have just answered, it will be clear that the issue of personality and the institutional infrastructure is not a problem. Then in your own view, what do you think brings these conflicts as the state currently as it is? Why are we having problems? Because from your presentation, or the way you have answered is like the personality issue and the infrastructure